The rehearsal dinner was at an upscale restaurant downtown, 60 guests crammed into a private dining room. My sister Isabel held court at the head table with her fiancé Thomas, both of them radiant in their pre-wedding glow. I sat near the back at a table with distant relatives I barely knew. The seating chart had been very deliberate. "We put you somewhere low-key," Isabel had explained earlier with false sympathy. "Since you're coming alone. No point putting you with the couples. That would just be awkward for everyone." Thomas had nodded agreement. "Besides, the head tables are for the wedding party. You understand." I understood perfectly. I wasn't in the wedding party despite being Isabel's only sister. She'd chosen 5 friends instead, all married or engaged, all with partners to escort them. "I needed symmetry," she'd said when I'd asked months ago. 5 groomsmen, 5 bridesmaids, all with dates. You'd throw off the photos showing up alone. Now, during the rehearsal dinner, that decision was being reinforced with cutting remarks. "Poor Claire," Isabel said loudly during a lull in conversation, gesturing toward me with her wine glass. "Always the loner. Never a date to anything." I tried to include her in the wedding party, but honestly, who wants a bridesmaid without a +1? The photos would look so unbalanced. Several guests laughed uncomfortably. Others nodded in agreement. Thomas's mother chimed in. "It's important for weddings to have that couple energy. Everyone paired off, everyone part of a unit. A single person just disrupts the harmony." I sipped my wine and said nothing. What they didn't know was that I was single by choice, not circumstance. My career as a foreign correspondent had taken me to 43 countries over the past 8 years. I'd covered conflicts, elections, humanitarian crises. I'd interviewed presidents and refugees, documented wars and peace agreements. Romance wasn't absent from my life. It simply wasn't the priority. I'd had relationships, but none that survived the demands of international journalism. Most people couldn't understand why I'd choose dangerous assignments over domestic stability. My family certainly didn't understand. "When are you going to settle down?" had been the refrain at every family gathering for 5 years. "When are you going to find someone? Don't you want what Isabel has?" I tried explaining that my work mattered, that documenting global events was important, that not everyone measured fulfillment by relationship status. They'd smiled politely and changed the subject. So when Isabel announced her engagement and started planning her perfect wedding, I wasn't surprised to be sidelined. The loner sister didn't fit the aesthetic. What Isabel didn't know was that Ambassador Elena Vasquez, the UN ambassador I'd spent 3 months embedded with during a peacekeeping mission, was in the city for a diplomatic conference. And I'd mentioned the rehearsal dinner during our last conversation. "I should pay my respects," Elena had said. "You've done so much to document our humanitarian work. The least I can do is attend your sister's celebration." I'd given her the details, not expecting she'd actually come. Ambassadors had busy schedules. But my phone had buzzed 20 minutes ago with a message. "Arrived. Security detail is coordinating with restaurant. See you shortly." I checked the time. Any moment now. Isabel stood to give a speech, champagne glass raised, her voice carrying over the dinner noise. "I want to thank everyone for being here tonight," she began. "Especially our wedding party. These amazing friends who've supported Thomas and me through everything. 5 incredible couples who know what real partnership looks like." She gestured to the head table where her bridesmaids and groomsmen sat with their partners, all looking appropriately coupled and content. "Tomorrow when we walk down that aisle," Isabel continued, "we'll be surrounded by love. By people who understand commitment. By..." The restaurant's main door opened. 4 security personnel in dark suits entered first, scanning the room with professional efficiency. Then 2 more flanking the entrance. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Ambassador Elena Vasquez walked in, elegant in a diplomatic suit, her bearing commanding immediate attention. She was a striking woman in her 50s, with the presence of someone who'd negotiated international treaties and managed global crises. Every head in the room turned. Isabel's champagne glass hung suspended, her speech forgotten. Elena's eyes found me immediately. She smiled warmly and crossed the room, her security detail maintaining respectful distance. "Claire," she said, embracing me. "So good to see you. I'm sorry I'm late. The Security Council session ran over." The room was absolutely silent. Ambassador Vasquez, I said, returning the hug. Thank you for coming. I didn't expect you'd be able to make it. Nonsense. After the work we did together in the border region, attending your sister's rehearsal dinner is nothing. She turned to address the room, her voice carrying authority. I apologize for the dramatic entrance. I'm Elena Vasquez, UN Ambassador for Humanitarian Affairs. Claire and I worked together extensively during the refugee crisis coverage. She's one of the finest journalists I've encountered. Isabel's mouth had fallen open. Thomas looked like he'd swallowed something sharp. Claire spent 3 months embedded with our peacekeeping mission, Elena continued. Living in conflict zones, documenting humanitarian efforts, bringing international attention to critical situations. Her reporting directly influenced 2 Security Council resolutions. We're deeply grateful for her courage and skill. She looked at me with genuine warmth. I wanted to personally thank her before tomorrow's wedding, but I see I've interrupted a speech. Please continue. She gestured to Isabel, who still stood frozen, champagne glass trembling in her hand. Isabel started, then stopped. You're the UN ambassador? I am, Elena confirmed pleasantly. And you know Claire? My sister Claire. Quite well. She's internationally recognized in diplomatic journalism circles. Her work has been published in every major global outlet. The documentary she produced on displacement won the Peabody Award last year. The silence was deafening. Thomas's mother, who'd commented about couple energy earlier, looked like she might faint. I wasn't aware Claire had a date tonight, Elena said, her tone innocent but her eyes sharp. I hope my unannounced arrival doesn't disrupt the seating arrangements. Though I must say, I'm confused why such an accomplished journalist would be seated away from family. Typically, international correspondents are considered quite prestigious guests. The rehearsal dinner descended into barely controlled chaos. Elena's security detail coordinated with the restaurant staff to add seating. Guests pulled out phones, frantically Googling my name and finding my bylines, my Peabody Award, my extensive portfolio of international reporting. She covered the peace negotiations in Geneva, someone whispered, reading from their phone. 3 humanitarian journalism awards, another said, scrolling. Her documentary is on streaming platforms. It has a 98% rating. She's been published in the Washington Post, New York Times, BBC, Al Jazeera. Isabel remained standing at the head table, her speech completely forgotten, staring at me with an expression of shock and dawning comprehension. Thomas's father approached Elena with desperate networking energy. Ambassador, what an honor. We had no idea Claire was so well connected. Perhaps we could discuss. Why she was seated at the back with distant relatives? Elena interrupted smoothly. Or why she wasn't included in the wedding party despite being the bride's only sister. Or why multiple comments have been made tonight about her attending alone, as if relationship status determines professional worth. He retreated quickly. Elena settled into the seat that had been added beside mine, accepting wine from a flustered server. I hope I haven't caused too much disruption. You've caused exactly the right amount, I said quietly. Good. Because the things I overheard when I walked in were appalling. Your sister mocking you for being single? That woman commenting about couple energy? Unacceptable. She sipped her wine. You've covered war zones. You've documented human rights crises. You've brought international attention to suffering that would otherwise be ignored. And they're concerned about wedding photo symmetry. They didn't know, I said. I don't talk about my work much at family events. Why not? Because they're not interested. They measure success by different metrics. Marriage, stability, conventional life paths. International journalism doesn't fit their worldview. Elena's expression hardened. Then their worldview is remarkably narrow. Isabel approached our table slowly, Thomas trailing behind her, both looking thoroughly humbled. Claire, Isabel started, her voice shaking. I didn't know. The UN ambassador? The Peabody Award? You never said. I tried, I said gently. At Thanksgiving I mentioned covering the peace talks. You asked if I'd met any single men there. At Christmas I explained about the documentary nomination. You changed the subject to your wedding plans. At Easter I tried to discuss the refugee work. You interrupted to show me bridesmaid dress options. Each example landed like a physical blow. Isabel's eyes filled with tears. I thought you were just traveling for work, she whispered. I didn't realize it was important work. Award-winning work. I thought. You thought I was wasting my life because I wasn't married, I finished. You excluded me from your wedding party because I didn't have a date. You seated me in the back because a single person disrupts the harmony. Thomas cleared his throat. We were wrong. Completely wrong. We judged you by irrelevant criteria instead of understanding your actual achievements. You judged me by your criteria for success, I corrected. Marriage, stability, conventional partnerships. Those things are valuable, for people who want them. But they're not the only measures of a meaningful life. Elena stood, her ambassador presence filling the space. Claire has dedicated her career to documenting human suffering and humanitarian work. She's lived in refugee camps, conflict zones, disaster areas. She's brought visibility to crises the world would otherwise ignore. That takes courage, dedication, and sacrifice that most people can't comprehend. She looked at Isabel directly. Your sister is remarkable. The fact that she's choosing to spend tomorrow at your wedding instead of covering the humanitarian summit in Geneva, an event she was specifically invited to by 3 different delegations, shows her dedication to family. Even family that hasn't shown her equivalent respect. Isabel's tears spilled over. The Geneva summit? You're missing that for my wedding. Family is important, I said simply. Even when family doesn't understand my choices. I'm so sorry, Isabel said, collapsing into a chair. For all of it. For excluding you from the wedding party. For the comments about being alone. For never asking about your work. For measuring your worth by whether you had a date. Thomas's mother appeared, her earlier smugness replaced with genuine remorse. Claire, I apologize for my comments about couple energy. They were thoughtless and cruel. Your accomplishments are extraordinary, and I should have recognized that regardless of your relationship status. The dinner resumed with a completely different energy. Elena held court graciously, speaking about humanitarian work, international diplomacy, and the critical role of journalists like me in bringing global attention to crises. Every conversation somehow circled back to my work, my awards, my courage in covering dangerous situations. The guests who dismissed me as the loner sister now competed to engage with me, to ask questions, to claim connection. Isabel abandoned her original speech entirely. Instead, she stood again, voice shaking, and said, I need to correct something I said earlier. I talked about being surrounded by love and partnership tomorrow. What I should have said is that I'm honored my sister Claire will be there. My brilliant, courageous sister who has seen more of the world and made more of a difference than anyone in this room. She looked directly at me. Claire, I'm sorry I didn't include you in the wedding party. I was focused on stupid things like symmetry and dates instead of recognizing that having my only sister beside me is what actually matters. If you'd still be willing, I'd be honored if you'd stand with me tomorrow. No date required. No symmetry needed. Just you. The room was silent, waiting. I'd like that, I said quietly. The applause was genuine this time, not performative. Elena squeezed my hand under the table. After dinner, as guests filtered out, Elena and I stood outside while her security detail prepared her car. Thank you, I said. For coming. For saying what needed to be said. Thank you for documenting the work we do, she replied. Your reporting saves lives, Claire. It brings attention and resources to places the world wants to forget. Never let anyone make you feel less valuable because you've chosen meaningful work over conventional expectations. My family is learning that lesson tonight. Good. They should learn it. She smiled. And for what it's worth, being single isn't a character flaw. It's a choice that allows you to do work others can't. Some of the most impactful people I know are happily unpartnered. Her car arrived. He hugged me once more. Enjoy the wedding tomorrow. And then get back to Geneva if you can. There are stories there that need your voice. The wedding the next day was beautiful. I stood beside Isabel as a bridesmaid, added at the last minute, wearing a dress that didn't quite match the others. The symmetry was broken, the photos would be unbalanced, and nobody cared. During her vows, Isabel added an unscripted line. I'm grateful for everyone here, especially my sister Claire, who reminds me that there are many ways to live a meaningful life. The reception was warm, genuine. Family members asked real questions about my work, listened to my answers, showed authentic interest instead of polite dismissal. Thomas's mother approached during dinner. Claire, I've been thinking about what Ambassador Vasquez said. About courage and sacrifice. I'd like to understand better what you do if you're willing to share. We talked for an hour. About refugee camps and peacekeeping missions, about the ethical complexities of journalism in conflict zones, about the stories that kept me awake at night and the ones that gave me hope. You've built a life of purpose, she said finally. That's rare. I'm sorry we couldn't see it because we were looking for the wrong things. 3 days after the wedding, I was on a plane to Geneva. The humanitarian summit needed coverage. There were stories to tell, crises to document, voices to amplify. Isabel texted as I boarded, "Thank you for being there. And thank you for teaching me that success comes in many forms. I'm proud of you. Really proud." I smiled and put my phone on airplane mode. The rehearsal dinner had become family legend. The night the UN ambassador showed up. The story would be retold at gatherings for years, each version emphasizing different details but all arriving at the same conclusion. They'd underestimated the loner sister. But the real lesson wasn't about my specific achievements. It was about recognizing that meaningful lives come in infinite varieties. That courage appears in many forms. That worth isn't determined by relationship status or conventional milestones. Some people measure success by wedding photos and couple symmetry. I measured it by stories told, crises documented, and voices amplified that would otherwise go unheard. The loner sister wasn't lonely at all. I was exactly where I needed to be, doing exactly what mattered. And finally, my family understood that too.